Chapter 4. The Brief Media's Role in the Marketing Mix. We're going to define marketing and what is a brand, identify a business objective versus a marketing objective, convert the 4 P's to the 4 C's, and identify a barrier versus a driver. Marketing in its purest form is simply the activities surrounding the promotion and exchange of products and services. From an economic standpoint, marketing facilitates the transfer of goods and services in a capitalist economy, and is therefore seen by some as critical to economic growth. In early days, it was enough to promote your product or service and its benefit. But as the Industrial Revolution took place and more people began living in larger cities with greater access to more resources, branding took hold. A brand was originally simply the mark a farmer would put on their cattle to signify ownership. But as product choice multiplied, people started branding their products. Today's brand has become synonymous with products and services, and branding has become a big business. Marketing in general is seen as the convergence of organizing product, place, price, and promotion. But Bob Lauterborn at the University of North Carolina has put a consumer-centric spin on the 4 P's. In this world of consumer control, it's not about pushing product out to consumers. It's about understanding consumer wants and needs, what problem that they are trying to solve, and creating something that will satisfy those wants and needs. It's not about the price a consumer will pay for a product, but what is the true cost to them to choose your product. We no longer seek to place products on store shelves where we think our consumer will be. We need to understand at what moment might the need arise, and be there to satisfy it then and there. Finally, promotion is now about a give and take between company and consumer. The buyer needs to feel that they're getting back what they put into the transaction. Think in terms of the 4 C's of consumer, cost, convenience, and communication to help alter your perspective, if even ever so slightly, as to come at it from a more consumer-centric place. The layers of goals and objectives are nuanced, but at its core, it's all about the ultimate business objective. This is what the CEO and Wall Street are primarily concerned with. What does the business need to achieve in order to be considered successful? From there, the rest of the organization goes to work to help make that happen. R&D will determine what kind of products and product improvements can be made. The sales organization will go to work to make sure the product is in the right places. Distribution and logistics will make sure that it gets there effectively. But marketing ensures that the right product gets to the right places at the right price and makes consumers aware of its availability. That last piece, awareness or promotion, gets passed along to the advertising and media agencies. The advertising or creative agency helps to define the message, and the media agency adds the role of communications. The role of communications defines what is the right consumer mindset for reciprocity, and what media channels will be most effective at reaching consumers in that mindset. None work independently of each other, and they're all interrelated. And remember, higher sales volumes equal greater dollar volume and higher profits. There are 2 primary goals marketing seeks to accomplish, either making more money on the stuff you sell or simply selling more stuff. Selling more stuff may be simply more quantity of product, or it can mean higher dollar volume. While sounding similar, these 2 objectives are quite distinct. You can easily sell more unit volume, yet lose lots of money if you sell it at a discount. Likewise, you can increase dollar sales while losing unit volume if you take price, that is, raise the price per unit. Another measure of selling more stuff is to focus on market share. It's important to steal volume from your competitors. Finally, sometimes it's all about making more money or profit. Profit can come from getting consumers to pay more for your product than it costs for you to produce, or from making your product cheaper to make and selling it at the same price. It's important that it's clear what the goal is because that will impact your communication strategy. Here's some examples. If the goal is to increase unit or dollar sales, one way to do that is to get people who buy your product infrequently to buy it more, or people who used to buy it but stopped to come back. You can also try to bring new users into your brand, or increase household penetration, or create new ways for them to use your brand. Finally, if unit sales is your goal, price promotions are almost guaranteed to succeed. With profit as a goal, your marketing objective might be to demonstrate the higher value or quality of your brand, lower the cost of goods sold, or COGS, and how much it costs for you to make your product. Finally, you can also just try to borrow equity by placing your brand and your brand messaging in places that are perceived to be places where quality exists. If you're trying to steal from competitors, you need to target those people who buy your competition more often than they buy your brand, and try to convince them to increase their purchases of your brand. This is also known as share of requirements. With objectives established, it's time to go back to the definition of your brand challenge. Those reasons may be rooted in societal norms. There are things happening in society today that make other brands more attractive. Technology can have a big impact on your business challenge, even if you're not a tech brand. Are consumers doing things differently than they did before? Amazon has and continues to change how consumers buy everyday products by leveraging technological advances in delivery systems. Economic forces can have a huge impact on your brand. In a downturn, if you're a premium priced product, you'll struggle. Conversely, as people start to feel as if they have more money to spend, they turn back to higher priced luxury goods, leaving the value brands behind. And political forces aren't always about who's running for president. Policy issues can impact how people interact with your brand, so it's important to know how the current power structure might impact regulations and policies in your consumer segment. Here are a few examples of business challenges. Under Armour launched their I Will What I Want campaign to reach women with their line of female sports apparel. When researching this category, they learned that the Under Armour brand was seen as very masculine. While women might be aware of their female apparel line, they weren't terribly interested in it as they saw the brand as very male-focused. So awareness was not their issue. Changing perceptions of the brand amongst females was their biggest challenge, which is a societal issue. Lean Cuisine was facing a similar societal problem. While the brand was initially launched by leveraging an increased focus on weight loss, societal norms have changed and people have shifted from a pure focus on weight loss and more on health and wellness. The brand needed to change perceptions as simply a low-calorie option and position themselves as an everyday lifestyle choice. They launched the Way This and saw an increase in sales. Finally, the T-Mobile Challenge was all about technology adaptation. Hispanic males dominated the growth in smartphone adoption. This was because many of them bypassed laptop and landline broadband option entirely and went straight to smartphones. Without the cost of laptops and broadband plans, they were willing to spend the money on the device and data plan. But while T-Mobile was trying to compete with Verizon and AT&T, competitors like Boost and Cricket were stealing their share amongst Hispanic males, and T-Mobile was getting squeezed out. They refocused their efforts on this key demographic and were able to gain back some of their lost market share. Each of these brands needed to understand what the underlying challenge was before they could find an effective solution. Business challenges result in barriers or drivers. The driver is what is driving acceptance of my brand, and the barrier is what is preventing acceptance of my brand. Barriers and drivers are not necessarily opposites. Barriers and drivers are best expressed in consumer language. They come from research based on what consumers think and feel about your brand. Sometimes why people do buy your brand is more persuasive than why consumers don't buy your brand. If you choose to leverage your drivers in your communications plan, you'll seek to find channels and touch points where people are looking for solutions, trust the source, and are open to hearing about your brand. The book discussed the AT&T example of promoting the fact that AT&T was the only place to get the latest innovation in smartphones. Early adopters would overlook the mild inconvenience of having a call drop every now and again in exchange for having the best tech on the market. Barriers are the reasons people don't choose your brand. They will be completely different from drivers. What you don't want to do with barriers and drivers is to look at two sides of one coin. Obviously, some people will like how your brand tastes and some won't. What you're trying to understand with barriers and drivers is, do you need to overcome a major objection in order to achieve your objectives, or do you have an advantage over the competition that will bring more people to your brand? A brand that identified a challenge and addressed it in their communication strategy was Coca-Cola Down Under. In 2015, Coca-Cola ranked number 3 in Interbrand's rankings, behind Apple and Google. In fact, in 2012, Coca-Cola was the number 1 brand, toppling to Apple the following year. But that doesn't mean that they don't have their challenges. Part of what helps make Coke maintain their strong brand value is that they're constantly focused on winning over the new generation of teens. In 2014, the brand was facing declining relevance amongst teens. In fact, 64% of Australian teens were not drinking Coke. With healthier, newer alternatives, Coke was seen as an old, sugary brand that wasn't good for you. To re-engage brands, they started with repackaging the products into smaller cans to reduce the overall calorie intake, and put them into colorful cans to attract attention and communicate this was something new. The media agency was tasked with getting the message out. This is where communication strategy took over. So that video just kind of demonstrates how the medium became the message for Coke. Let me know if you have any questions.